Hello everybody and welcome to An Evening With. You're here tonight to obviously meet two amazing women that work for Formula One, for F1. This is it's Alpa Junemann and Ellen Lewis that are joining us. I'm your host, I'm LA Wilshaw, and if you've not met me already, I do a little bit of background for Inside F2, which is a Formula 2 platform, and I also dabble a little bit in interviewing as well. I've done a little bit for FIA Women in Motorsport. I also participate in a Zoomers chat with other motorsport enthusiasts once a month. And I also do a podcast for my football team, for Manchester City Football Club. So, you may have seen me around and about, and it's really lovely to see all you joining tonight. So thank you very much for joining us, first of all. And thank you also to F1 and to Motorsport UK for coming up with this event and putting this event on for everybody to join in. Last night, Rosanna Tennant kicked things off for everybody, and that was a wonderful interview. If you haven't managed to see it, go on to the Facebook groups, the social media groups, FIA Women in Motorsport, FIA Girls on Track, F1, Motorsport UK. You can see the reruns, and there'll be a rerun of this tonight. We are recording, so you will be able to see it when it's posted. If you're not comfortable with the recording, it's absolutely fine if you'd prefer not to continue. A couple of handy hints for you: if you'd like to put your viewing on to speaker view, and then you'll be able to look at us as our lovely guests that are speaking to you tonight, Alpa and Ellen. We've also muted everybody just so we don't have doorbells ringing, dogs barking in the background. It could all get a little bit chaotic. So if there's anything you would like to say, any questions that you would like to send in, please use the chat there and we'll try and pick up as many as we can. We're going to speak to Alpa and Ellen initially, and then we will come to your questions as well throughout towards the end. So please send us as many questions in as you can for the girls. You know, they're here for you and they're here to share their story. So without further ado, let's crack on with Alpa, shall we? So Alpa is the head of digital delivery at F1. And Alpa, you're going to tell us all about your job, what you do, and how you influence F1. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Louise. I just want to say it's lovely to see you all, and thank you for those of you that put your camera on. It's so nice to see your faces and engage with you. So yes, my name is Alpa. I work for Formula One. I have been with the company for nearly 3 years now. It's gone really, really fast. I'm the head of digital delivery. So I run and manage a team that deliver many of our digital projects and programs for our digital products in Formula One. And Ellen's going to talk to you a little bit about that shortly after me. So it's been quite interesting. I have a small team. I would say digital's been around in Formula One for around 10 years, but 3 years ago was a real change when the company was bought by Liberty Global. And that type of media company really understand you can drive fan engagement and, let's be honest, make some money through digital products that hopefully all our fans love. So just in terms of a bit about my role and the things that I would do day to day, it kind of crosses 6 key parts. So obviously delivery, so we don't need to talk about that. Along with delivery, there's a whole kind of framework and process about how you deliver to make sure that you deliver well. So it's my job to ensure all of that is there, and that the people that we work with internally and our partners understand that method so that we deliver successfully. Budget is a really, really big part of what I do. So I'm not going to bore you with that stuff, but all of the budget that it takes to deliver all of our, let's say, cool and exciting projects, and then to maintain and support them, I manage that. We work with a lot of third parties, a lot of digital agencies, so managing the contracts that go with these partners, and just general vendor management. Are they doing what they should be doing to the quality that we've asked for? I lead and manage a small team, and then a little bit more that I've got into in the last sort of year or two is looking ahead. So our strategic direction, you know, you need to know what your plan is at least, I would say, 2 years in advance to make sure that myself and the team and the rest of the organization are ready to deliver on that plan.
Who comes up with ideas though? Do you have brainstorming sessions? And if you do have them, how often? And
Yeah.
from that moment, how does that idea become a reality?
Yeah, this is a really nice sideline to Ellen. I'll answer the question briefly, but I think this is a wonderful point for Ellen to answer. So we've got a whole bunch of stakeholders that I would say are on one side of the business, and their job is to market, to sell, to make revenue, to talk to our fans. And there's a whole strategy behind that. So Ellen and people in her team will take that strategy and they'll prioritize all the things that they've been asked for, and then they will come to my team. So I don't know if this is a nice segue to Ellen to get into, but I think it's a good one for her to answer.
Hi everyone. Yes, so I'm a senior product manager at Formula One, and as Alpa said, I guess feeding things through the funnel is really my responsibility and the responsibility of my team. So how we'll come to decide that is to evaluate both the user and the business needs, and to understand the technical strategy, and we bring all those three things together and try to make sure that we're delivering on our business goals to ensure that we're creating a product that will drive engagement, reach, and revenue. So having people continuously using our products, expanding the number of users that come to our website and our apps, and as well trying to drive subscriptions.
Yeah, that was going to be something that I wanted one of you to expand on. You know, when you talk about, you know, what is it you're talking about delivering? You're delivering on the website, you're delivering through apps, you're delivering for obviously your stakeholders and shareholders, but ultimately for the consumer. Is that correct?
Exactly. The fans are central to everything we do, and that's a huge part of our ethos at Formula One. Absolutely. So we want to make sure that we are encouraging existing fans to be using our platforms and driving new fans as well.
How do you judge how successful that anything you put out there is going?
So we'll set ourselves internal targets each year. At the moment, they're focused on driving users, so increasing the number of people that come to our platforms, increasing video views, and I can see someone's asking about typical KPIs, so hopefully that answers your question, V. Increasing video views, page views, and as well subscriptions. So make sure that you buy a Formula One TV Pro subscription.
Because of last year, because of COVID, and obviously everybody's on, well, not everybody, but the majority of the world is on lockdown, and that is now your consumer audience. What has changed? Has anything changed regarding how you reach out to people, how you promote, what ideas you come up with? You know, bearing people are at home now. Has anything been created for that?
So I think our products are already kind of geared to people at home. So if anything, we're just kind of trying to get more people on the platform. You're seeing you're not able to do as much if you're in a country that is under lockdown. So it's a good opportunity to try to get people onto our products to engage in sport, because sport is one of the few industries that has been able to operate in this climate.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I want to take things back a little bit though, if that's okay, because, you know, everybody's sort of on a road to F1 or a road to motorsport, depending on what their ambition is. And Alpa, let's start with you. First of all, was it your ambition to be in motorsport when you were younger?
No, is the easy answer. I mean, the question is, did I have a real plan when I was younger? I'll just take a step back and a little bit about, you know, where I started. So I did a media and film degree, and so I always knew that I was going to be in that space. In one of my roles in my career was Sky, and I spent, you know, 8, maybe 9 years there, and that really kind of shaped the person that I am today. if you think of Sky, we all really associate them with sports, but they don't actually own a sport. They televise lots of sports, but it's not their sport. They're not the NBA. They're not Formula One. They're not FIFA. So in that way, we really felt like we almost own the sport when you work there. I generally am a sports fan. I watch a lot of sports. Like, I love football, watch cricket, rugby. I'll even watch the darts if there's nothing else on. And
sorry, Alpha, who's your team if you support football?
I'm an Arsenal fan through and through. Nobody judge. Don't judge me. And we're going to climb back up there. So I've always loved the energy of sports. And I felt like when I was at Sky, I owned a sport. So when the Formula One opportunity came up, for me, it was great. And the other reason that it was great is Formula One at that time were at the beginning of that digital journey in sport, and all of the commercial aspects that go with digital products, because at the end of the day, you need to engage your fans. If they're paying for content, or they're paying for one of your products, they need to be great so that they keep coming back. And so for me, it was taking all of those things that I was really passionate about Sky to work in Formula One, but it wasn't my plan many years ago to work in sports.
So how did it happen? How did you get to where you are today?
I think, honestly, in terms of a lot of people that come to Formula One, they've come from companies like Sky. They've come from a sport. So I think my Sky experience put me in really good stead for that part of the role. I've been in delivery and delivering consumer products it's really showing my age now, but for nearly 20 years. So I love it. I would never work for a company delivering products that I don't tangibly love myself. So, when you get calls from recruiters and they're like, do you want to, deliver this university product? I'm like, no, like I'm out. I'm just not interested. We've all got our likes. So I think that delivery experience, that kind of project experience, that digital experience, along with the sports, was a perfect combination for Formula One.
Okay. And what about yourself, Ellen? Let's go right back for you, right to the beginning. What did you want to do when you were a lot younger, looking at, branching out into the world? And then how did you get into Formula One?
So when I was a little girl, I loved, especially when I was at school, I really loved learning languages. So I thought that I would end up being a diplomat. That clearly hasn't happened. When I was wanting to get into university, I sort of decided to change tack there and went into journalism. And unfortunately, when I left journalism, the global financial crisis, when I left university, the global financial crisis was just about to take off. So there weren't many jobs around in journalism. So I took a job. I had been working at a radio station, handing out crisps and icy cold cans of Coke on the street to listeners. And I managed to kind of like wiggle my way through back into journalism when the radio station I worked for, they had, I'm from Australia originally. Some of you may be able to tell from my strong accent. The radio station I worked for had, they broadcast AFL football, Australian Football League football. So they were looking for someone to create content, digital content about their program. So that's kind of how I started my journey into digital, and it sort of went from there.
And the move to the UK for the position, I guess, into F1 straight away, was it? Or did you come over and do something first?
So I came over 8 years ago. My boyfriend, who is now my husband, was offered a job over in London, and we'd only known each other for 6 weeks at that point in time, but decided to move over with him and took on a few contracts at different companies in London, like PlayStation and Disney, and then about 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, ended up at Formula One.
Right, okay, that sounds absolutely amazing. We've got lots of questions coming in, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I think this is quite important for the people around the world that are maybe nowhere near a racetrack but want to become involved in motor racing, or they actually want to come and work for F1. And you know, you had to move home, you had to up sticks, you had to leave your family, your friends, and you know, that is one of the sacrifices that people will have to think about making to make their dreams come true. So how was that for you to make that step?
I was always wanting to move to London. I think that there's a real excitement about this city. So I had always planned to stay here, to be here for a certain amount of time, probably not 8 years. So I think when I left, it was an adventure, but I was probably going to come back to the country in about 2 years' time. But I've just ended up staying. So I did give up like career prospects in Australia, which I don't regret. But I had a digital career in front of me in Australia and left that all behind. And I'm really glad, because I've come on a journey into product management that I wouldn't have necessarily gone on if I'd stayed there.
Right, we've got some, I'll say, some questions coming in, and one of the questions is, what is your advice for, and this is for either of you, what is your advice for somebody who wants to work in F1, Formula One, but is not working in sports right now?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
So the one thing I would say is, there are so many different roles in sport, like they are in any other business. So you need to know what kind of thing that you're interested in. Are you a marketeer? Are you a product person like Ellen? You might love numbers, and you might be an accountant or want to be an accountant. So obviously Formula One has all those roles. You know, it could be in broadcast and that sort of thing. So I think you've got to pick your genre, the thing that you're interested in, and then try to make your plan within sport. I think the other thing is, build your network, build your connections. I mean, you've started with a few here today, but you know, sometimes you can talk to people without you know, actually asking them for anything. You know, you don't have to ask them for a role to learn more about that particular business. The other thing that you'll find is, when you start connecting with people in motorsport, they know other people in motorsport, or they'll just know other people in sports. So I think that's another really, really good way to expand your network. But I think it would be too woolly to say, I just want to work in Formula One. You've got to pick your path in.
Yeah, and what about you, Ellen?
I definitely agree with, in terms of networking. That was something that was drummed into me when I was at university. Your network is really, really important to be able to get future job prospects. So never underestimate the power of that. For me personally, what I found is being able to like work in other media organizations in kind of more dog's body roles have meant that I've been able to garner a breadth of experience across the business. So being able to get that commercial experience within a media organization, I think for me personally was a really good pathway for me into Formula One.
And thank you very much for Nianka Rolos for that question. So we have Carl Atford that asked, as the world moves into digital media, some of the legacy contracts prevent streaming in some countries, i.e. the UK. So can you share any insight into what's being done to allow you to keep up with the changes?
I can take that one. So the broadcast contracts that we have in separate countries are really integral to our business. As we've rolled, we released an OTT, so over the top streaming product, F1 TV, 3 years ago now. That's as time goes on, the rights in each of those countries, we're hoping to be complementary to a certain extent. So we're looking to negotiate digital deals in different markets to enable more of our fans in countries where who may not be able to access Formula One. Sorry, I've got my cat coming in who's distracting me. Apologies for that. Who may not be able to access Formula One through our streaming products. We hope to be able to get to them in the coming years.
Okay. And as a volunteer, a motorsports official, this is for with professional background in digital marketing. I'm not sure who's asking this. What should I learn to be a better candidate?
Can you repeat the question, Louise?
Sorry, yes. So as a volunteer motorsport official with a professional background in digital media, digital marketing, what should I learn to be a better candidate? So I'm guessing maybe a course or a degree, or, you know, what do they need to do to become a better candidate to be considered?
Yeah, I think Ellen's definitely got an answer to this question, and so have I. I mean, I'm going to be really honest. In a company like Formula One, the amount of candidates for the roles that we have, it is going to be competitive. So I still go back to Ellen's point about the network and meeting people in advance before even a role that may come up, so you're known. But in terms of it does come down to, you know, skills, education, and experience. So I think having formal qualifications, because you'll be up against candidates with formal qualifications, having that experience. I know it's really hard. We've all faced the same thing as a graduate. How do you get experience when that's your first role? But, you know, in some way it will happen if you've got that experience for that type of role. You know, looking at, again, the types of organizations that Formula One would recruit for, from people like myself and Ellen, you know, product focused organizations, consumer led organizations, media organizations. So I think putting yourself in those companies, those courses, and the network should put you in good stead.
Yeah, I kind of feel that, you know, whether you're near a racetrack or even if you're in you're on a sheep farm in the middle of Australia, you know, the outback, what we've noticed this year in the last 12 months is, you know, things going online, everything going online. And if you want to be involved, then, you know, obviously get involved the best way you can. And I totally agree with qualifications. You know, I think more than anything, even if you have a qualification in something maybe a little bit unrelated, I think that the fact that you've spent 2 or 3 years in a university, putting in that work, putting in that effort is almost enough, even if it's not necessarily in the right field, for an employer to think, well, this person's dedicated, this person worked very hard for a number of years to gain this qualification. And I kind of feel that, you know, not everybody necessarily has to be in the paddock or has to be at the track or even has to come to play. There's television studios, there's the online community. So what would you say, Alpa? Would you agree that there's many avenues to take regarding in motorsport?
Absolutely. And then, you know, there's another side of the business that, you know, I know, but I don't know so well. So we've got a lot of camera operators. They only work at the race. So if there's no race, they're not working. Now, I don't know, they've probably been at Formula One for like 30 years or something. They don't have any formal qualifications, but what they have got is the skill, and they don't live anywhere near either office that we have for Formula One in London or Biggin Hill. But it doesn't matter, because they've learnt their trade and they fly around the world to do the job that they need to do. So I think a lot more is possible. Even with all the challenges that we've had last year, and, you know, everyone working from home, we've always maintained, you know, we need a healthy amount of time in the office, or we need to be together all the time in the office. But actually, look what we've achieved not being together. And that's not just our company, that's many companies. So I think you're right, there's a lot more that is accessible than there was before, and we've sort of all proved it last year.
Ellen, would you have an opinion?
In terms of pathways into F1, yeah, I think, like you say, last year has, I suppose, meant that we've all been so digitally connected that it's really, I guess, given a platform to lots of different people to build their own profiles on media. So I guess there's any learning that you can get from doing your own broadcasting, or, learning about analytics on a website, if you created your own website, or writing your own stories. I think that will help you kind of just get you stepping up the ladder to a career of your choosing.
I think it's about transferable skills as well, isn't it, really?
Exactly, yes. And particularly in media, like Alpa said, having a background in media, probably because our roles are very kind of media focused, there's plenty of transferable skills that you can take from being a non-sports organisation to being in a sports organisation.
So what does it take to I know Alpa, I know Ellen, and I've spoke with them previously, and I know the hours that you put in, the hours that you work, the sacrifices you have to make, and I think it'd be good for everybody out there to understand that a little bit more, and what you have to put in to this role, to this job.
Definitely the first year of joining. So like Alpa mentioned, Liberty Global purchased Formula One. I think it's about 4 years ago now. And the digital estate was completely different to what it is now. There was huge kind of headroom in terms of opportunities to develop new products and to re-platform their existing products. And that was mainly because the previous management saw digital as a threat to the value of the media rights. So when Liberty came in, they saw there was a massive opportunity. And with that opportunity, there were very tight deadlines that we were wanting to turn around brand new products. And it was like, basically we were operating in a startup environment, which was quite, I suppose for anyone that's listening, it might be a bit unexpected to hear that, because F1 is such a well-known brand, but the company was like in a very different state to what it is now, in terms of its digital maturity. So we were putting in so much, like long hours, very small team compared to what we have now. So it was about a year of grueling effort, really. It's starting to taper off now, because I don't think that is necessarily, it doesn't have a lot of longevity if you're working that hard, but it's great to be able to keep reaping the benefits of that effort that we put in during that initial period.
Yeah, that's great. We've got Maria B, who is asking, as a student in university, what can she do to improve her digital skills to be ready for when she graduates?
That's a great question. Showing my age a bit, but I think there's a lot of good courses that are add-ons these days, if it's not your kind of main part of your degree or the course that you're studying, that can enhance what you've got. So I mean, our world is if we just kind of make it really simple, it's websites, it's apps, it's digital interactions that our customers and fans can use. So I think that if that is your interest, you want to get to know that world and how it works. So I think look around you. I haven't looked recently, again, I've been really busy, but in previous times when we were allowed out, there's so many free meetups, digital events, they don't cost anything. You just need to connect in with that community. But I'm pretty sure within the university itself, there are things that can be done. Again, going back to that network, if you start tuning into that network, you're going to meet people who are able to educate you about those things. And if you do have a plan and know sort of what direction you want to go in, those people can help.
Well, Paula Kowalska is asking, was wondering what you both think of education versus experience, if you haven't managed to get the education, or if you maybe you're not in a position to have an education, because not everybody is, but maybe 10, 20 years worth of work experience. How would you view that?
I think experience is paramount, to be honest. As someone who, my journalism and politics degree isn't necessarily of much use to me in the role that I'm currently in. While it's certainly helpful to have a tertiary degree, I think experience experience is always really, really valuable, especially if you're able to, if it's exactly if it matches the role that you're wanting to get into. If there are transferable skills, it's definitely viewed as beneficial, especially if it's a similar industry.
Alpa.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And, I go back to that point for many graduates, they've done the degree and it's wonderful and they got to the top of their game by getting a great result. But then now comes the job market and what's the first thing they ask for? Experience. So I don't think there's a set path depending on who you are. I think it all works. I think the biggest thing, and this is advice from myself, my younger self, which is be bold, have a plan, even if other people think it's ridiculous. Have a plan. When you know what direction you want to go in, you can start planning towards that direction. So if it's not a degree, then it's experience. So, I didn't tell you about my first role. I worked for a digital agency. I think there was 8 of us. And if one person fell sick, that was it. One of our projects wasn't delivering. It was like such a tiny company. I didn't know how to do project management. I knew what it was. And I had to do my best sales pitch to say, I will do everything, this, and this. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. But if you teach me this, I will, I will work for you guys for as long as you want me working for you. So that was my way into digital media, having had a degree but no experience. So, but your plan does need to be targeted to go and get that experience.
Yeah, definitely. We've got Louise Hale, who is a specific product management question. So it's clear there are many different stakeholders that you need to cater to. How do you collect and gather meaningful insights and data to help make product decisions to deliver to those stakeholders?
So we have a research team that utilises a fan forum called Fan Voice, and we'll use that as a test bed to kind of bounce ideas to gauge how popular different ideas are. But that's kind of more on the qualitative side. On the quantitative side, we use a tool called Google Optimize to run A/B testing, and we'll gather data to see how successful any tests that we have run on our website. So for anyone who doesn't quite understand what I'm saying, that may be changing the color of a button blue or yellow and seeing which one wins effectively. That will help understand how influential the changes we make will be towards the goals that we have to try to drive engagement, so to keep people on the website and to make purchases.
We've got Chloe Middlebrook. There seems to be a lot of internships, work experience and opportunity placements available for engineering roles, etc., but not a lot in the media sphere. How would you suggest going about getting work experience in F1 or the motorsport or motorsports in general?
I would say reach out to people.
Yeah.
Find out what their names are, guess their email address, send them a note. Don't be annoying. Learn the balance between being assertive and annoying. And I'm just trying to invite people out for coffee. That's, for me, as someone who's brand new to the UK, that was the best thing that I did in terms of trying to make a network here. So just asking someone out for coffee in non-COVID times. And just asking to pick their brains, really.
Alpa?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Ellen. I think it's a really, really good question, because the observation is accurate that for some areas there is internships and for some areas there isn't. I would also say through, well, Louise, you probably know, but for all the forums that are around women and motorsports, is perhaps also suggest that in. So it's been suggested today. So, how do we help to make sure that there is a forum to perhaps organize internships for certain roles one day? I don't have the answer, but happy to, work with people to put that forward. But again, I would say, yeah, the power of the network, as Ellen has just mentioned, is a really good tool to use.
Yeah, that was a subject I was going to ask you about, really, under the tree of We Race as One, and involving planning anything in the immediate future that does embrace diverse groups. Is there anything that's coming this season, or is this just something that's being worked upon? As you say, there's an idea today.
Do you know what? I think there's probably a few in F1 that could comment better than me, but we do have a huge diversity program, with its own delivery team and all those sorts of things. So there's a lot of activity happening. Exactly what is happening and exactly when it is happening, I have to admit, I don't know all of the details, but I do know there is a tremendous commitment. Obviously, this session is part of that commitment. But the one thing that I would say is, if there is something that someone would like to see that they haven't found so far, I think this is the perfect forum to suggest those things in.
Alan, any thoughts?
Oh, no, absolutely agree with Alpa. There's last year particularly, there was a huge push alongside our sustainability changes to make racing more diverse and make the back office of racing more diverse. So I'm excited for the future and see what comes in that space.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we're using this platform to highlight the ladies that are part of Formula One, because you're not on the television. We don't get to see you, and we don't get to see what does go on in the background, and how many amazing women are out there keeping this wheel turning, this cog turning. And that's what's wonderful about you both coming on tonight, and I'm sure everybody's incredibly grateful, as I am too. So I keep thanking you, but again, thank you. We have Matteo Marino, who's asking, what do you believe is the best time and the best way to send a CV? Do you think that opportunities could come up also in the middle of the season, or are people pretty much set in place at the beginning and that's it, for another year?
I think it depends on the department, I suppose. There's a real seasonality to working at F1, which is a lot of the people that travel will be in traveling roles will, and I don't know a lot about this, so I'm probably speaking from assumptions, but they'll be fairly locked in for the season, I would say. But for roles which are kind of more based in London, like we are, it's when there's opportunities that are available, really. So I would say, as and when you see opportunities, to apply for them.
Yeah. Anna Lopez is asking, the jobs F1 digital manager are always in the UK. Do they have offers to work by telecommunicating?
I think I could take that one. I understand what you're saying. So although F1 is a global sport, and one can see it as a global business, you're right. The main offices are based out of the UK. I would say pretty much all of the people that work for F1 directly are based in the UK. So I guess the question is, would it work not being in the UK? And I have to admit, I don't have the answer to that. But I think in this day and age, with travel and being connected in the digital way that we have, and all working from home, I guess everything is possible. But to be honest, most of the people live and work in the UK.
Okay, this is something I don't understand, so this is, hopefully you will understand what this means. Can you mention these events stemmed from the D&I initiatives, please? And yes, does that make any sense?
Do you mean the events that were on today, do you think, Louise?
D&I, I'm not 100% sure. If you can ask that question again, whoever asked that question, that would be really great to be able to answer that for you. That's fantastic. Virginia Wesley, for either of you, both of you, thank you first of all. So they're saying, Virginia's saying, can you each share one of your most memorable moments? Well, yes, that's one of my questions too. One of the most memorable moments during your time so far in F1.
I'll go first because my most memorable moment is one of my favourite life moments. Is taking a private jet to the Baku race a couple of years ago. That is something I'm sure I will never get to do again, and only happened because there are no direct flights between London and Baku, so we got a private jet, and it was one of the best things I've ever done.
It's such a shame. There used to be, I used to work for British Airways. We used to have a Baku flight, but then they withdrew it, so it was such a shame. But well, not a shame for you because you got to go in a private jet.
Exactly.
Do we know whose private jet this was, or we not?
I've no idea.
So it was luxury. Did you get to share it with anybody that you would love to rub shoulders with again, maybe?
Oh, Chase Carey and Ross Brawn, absolutely, yes.
Best friends now, Ellen.
That's right.
Absolutely, yeah, that's fine. It's actually one of my the question isn't for me, but it's one of my favourite moments too. I was privy to serving upon Ron Dennis on a flight out to Austin at one point, and it was an absolute pleasure and a privilege. And I was there obviously for the Grand Prix too, so that was amazing. But what about you, Alpa? Come on.
Yeah, I have to say, for me it was going to a Grand Prix, and just to set the scene a little bit. So our roles, we are lucky to go to a Grand Prix and see that, but the race is going to happen without us. So we've not got a specific role to ensure that the race actually happens. So it was Singapore, which is an amazing Grand Prix. So it's a nighttime race, and there were a few amazing things for me. One, I think I'd been in the business for 6 months before I'd actually gone to a Grand Prix. What was great about that was everything that I had learned. You go to the track and you see it from behind the scenes, and you go out with the engineers and you follow the camera operators. You get to see how it all works, and the whole puzzle just comes together, and it is just really, really exciting to get that first-hand kind of learning and see how it all works. The second great thing about that race was every day I was there, from the Wednesday to the Sunday, and every day I would walk the pit lane, and you can see all this stuff on TV. But I didn't realize how amazing it was to walk the pit lane, and those team garages, they're like works of art. I'm really into art and I love beautiful things in terms of what I consider beautiful, but those garages, they are works of art, and you should see how they treat that space. Like, they paint every little speck of the wall. That's the first thing, and the floors are painted. Then the equipment comes, then the car comes, then all the other mechanics come, and you see this wonderful build up over the next few days. And then really just watching a race at night from a balcony view was just an awesome experience.
Yeah, most definitely. I've loved Singapore myself too. It's an amazing city, and if anybody does ever get the chance to go out there for a Grand Prix, it's one of my highest recommended Grand Prix to attend. Do you get to many Grand Prix for your position? And that's to both of you.
I'll let Ellen go first.
Alpa touched on it in her previous answer, but essentially we're not essential to the race operations. So it's important for us to go so that we understand key parts of the business, particularly because our timing products. So we've got a product within the F1 app. It's called Live Timing, and that is all done based on the infrastructure at the track. So actually going to the track and seeing how that all happens, like all the different timing loops that are set up at different parts of the circuit that all get fed back to the broadcast center, and the teams that manage all of that is the infrastructure that we need to understand how our products work end to end. And then going and seeing just the general the event, because we have another product called the Race Guide app, which is basically a wayfinder app, or it tells you what's going on. So understanding the problems that people face when they're at the track is important in terms of gathering research for us. So probably won't go for a little while based on what's happening with the global pandemic, but hopefully it's something that we can do maybe like once a year or so.
The projects that you're involved in, I'm obviously assuming there's teams, there's groups of people involved, but for both of you, is there anything there's been sort of a bit of a sole project or a sole idea that's developed into something that you're incredibly proud of?
I think re-platforming the website and the app in a space of about 9 months, which is no mean feat, I think is the proudest thing that I think we've accomplished, particularly because it was such a small team at that point in time. And it was all hands on deck, really. So I think that's definitely my proudest accomplishment at Formula One.
Alpa?
I think mine is slightly different just because I manage a team and we're delivering lots of projects and programs. I think one of the hardest challenges was, coming in a few years ago was, designing an organization, recruiting people and delivering projects all at the same time was a really tough gig. Usually you would do things in the sequence that I have just mentioned. And when you do things out of that sequence, in a few simple words, it's stress and it's pressure. So what I'm really, really proud of now is that we've got to a really good place. There's still a lot of maturing to go, but we have got processes, we have recruited a team, we have got a structure. And as Ellen mentioned, we have delivered some really, really cool projects and programs and great products for our fans. There are some things that as a fan, you can see and we could say, yeah, we delivered that. That's great. And there are some things as a fan you can't see that, they're kind of boring to you, but it's about security and regulatory and all that kind of stuff. But equally as important because, you would get in trouble if those things weren't there. So I'm really proud of all those things.
Not just amazing flights on private jets, but are there any perks to this job? And that's for both of you.
Shall I go first, Ellen?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll tell you some of the things that I like that I see as a real perk for the job. When I did go to my first sort of races, the one thing that I realized is for the side of the business that I work on, you're in your uniform, so you have your Formula One uniform, and the way that all these people that worked at F1, that worked at the track, and they bring it back into the office, they all knew each other, and it was like a family. And I have to admit, I've worked for some great companies, and really great people, and we all got on. But there's something about F1, and I think it is because of its size. It's not big like Sky. It's much smaller than that. They're like a family and they all really know each other, and the banter and the fact that I knew that if I got lost at the circuit or just went off in the wrong direction, all I had to do was get on a radio or look at someone in an F1 shirt and went, I'm fairly new, can you help me, and I need to get back to this point. And I was so impressed with that. But again, I think it is a very unique company, and I don't know lots about other sports, but I don't think I've ever worked for a company where you say to someone on, how long have you been here? And they go 10 years, 12 years, 20 years. So there's so much history there. So that's one of the things I think is really impressive.
Ellen?
In terms of benefits that I think are great for this organisation, we get a small allocation of race tickets. So it means that our family and friends are able to access the sport that we work in, which is great. And the maternity leave policy that Formula One has is actually incredible compared to many other organisations around the world, let alone in the UK. So they are two, especially as a woman, they are two fantastic perks of working at Formula One.
Yeah, that's actually great the way you said as a woman, because that's leading on to another question from Yasmin Lam. Working in F1 as a woman, are there any times you felt it helped you stand out, or times you felt intimidated in a male-dominated field? And how do you find the balance?
So when I first joined our department, I was the second female employee. So to some extent, I think being a pioneer of gender balance was really helpful in terms of getting me a foot in the door. There are so many more women that now work within the part of the organisation that I'm in, which is absolutely great to see. And what was the second part to the question?
It was how do you find the balance?
I think there are so many women, particularly in the commercial side of the business. There are so many women in very senior roles, which is quite unique for a sporting organisation. It's really inspiring to see. particularly because for women to be able to progress in organisations, they really need to have women above them to pull them up. There's studies that have shown that. So it's really encouraging for the future of women within the organisation to be able to see that there's a pathway there for them.
Yeah. And what about you, Alpa?
There is a lot more women, I think, even at the point where I joined Formula One. Look, I think Formula One does have the challenges that the wider motorsport industry has in terms of the ratio of men to women. What I would say is that I do believe that the right initiatives are in place to start making that change. Is it exactly how people would like the balance to be today? Probably not. There's more work to do, but I do really believe that change is happening, and I think the responsibility for all of us, whether you're female or male, is just to make sure that those initiatives land, and we're all part of that effort to drive those initiatives.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, this is what the evening with getting to know the women of Formula One is all about. You know, this has stemmed from F1's diversity and inclusion initiatives, as you know, as you just touched on a little bit before there, Alpa. So, you know, absolutely. I think I've been asked a question. My question is, what's my background and how did I get into motorsport journalism? So I fell into it accidentally, which I think is sometimes most people's story, right? Of you know, coming upon something. You know, I was spending a little bit of time at home, and I just joined up with this platform. I've written on and off in the past, few articles for my local newspaper. I don't have a journalism degree, but I do have a degree in media and performance. So we did do a lot of this kind of, not necessarily sport related, but I was privy enough to work for the BBC, you know, back when I was at university, and that was an unpaid but a position, a proper position, and it got me out to my own football club, my own football stadium, where I could interview fans down there. Very simple, only an afternoon a week, but that's sometimes where you have to begin, and writing for this platform has opened a lot of these doors for me, and networking as well, you know, meeting people like Claudia Mauer from, you know, who is Susie Wolf's business partner, you know, and also Jenny, who we have, you know, here on the call from Motorsport UK. And I think sometimes the right place, the right time. So what you all need to work on is putting yourself in that right place, and when the time comes, your opportunity will arrive. And you know, and thank you for that question as well, it's much appreciated. So we have Alessia. And we also have 8 minutes left. So we will extend if there's a lot more questions coming in, just for a few minutes, but just to let you know, we are on obviously a time schedule, so if you can just bear that in mind if you do have any more pressing questions, to pop them in, and we'll ask Ellen and Alpa before we obviously leave the chat tonight. But also please don't forget, there are many more chats for the rest of the month of February, so I'll register to those if you haven't done already. So where were we? Alicia, oh well, thank you for this incredible offer. She's interested if there are any major disadvantages being a woman in the F1 industry. Do you think there's a disadvantage?
Well, I don't, and I think it's worked for Ellen and it's worked for me, so I really don't think there is a disadvantage.
I think it depends on the role that you're in. I think there's a lot of travel required for some of the at track roles, which I hate to say it, but often tend to disadvantage women. Hopefully we move into a society where that isn't so much the case, but I think particularly for the traveling circus that we are, I think sometimes that can be difficult for women to get into.
Yeah, I think, I'd agree. I've got a massive traveling background myself. I didn't pop that in because it's not really relevant to motorsport, but, I was a flight attendant for 4 different airlines over the years. And what you do tend to do is bond with those people that you work with very, very quickly, because they become your family, they become your best friends, even if it's for 24 hours. And I think maybe even motorsport might have that kind of nature to it, that you'll be working alongside one person one day and maybe somebody completely different the next day, depending on what you go into and what you do. And somebody has made a comment about them getting Nienka says you can feel the family feeling in F1, and it's one of the reasons why they love it. And that's amazing, because that obviously comes across through a screen or through a computer. So whatever, even you girls are a part of that, so whatever you're creating is a lovely family feel, and it's magic.
That's great. Obviously the ratio of men to women is different, but when I have been to the track, there are women that are traveling to races. Every person doesn't do the same amount of races depending on the number of people in the team. So some people will do 7 races, some people will do 17 races, depending on their role. So I think that Ellen is right. It depends what your role is. If you do a role like myself and Ellen, there's not too much traveling. But if you want to do a traveling role because you have one of those roles that is essential to run the race, you might not mind traveling so much in a year. So I think it all comes down to what you want to do. You may want to do 8 races, but you're not going to do 17 races a year, for example, if that makes sense, because that's too much time away from your family, for example.
Absolutely. I think if I was 25 again, I would absolutely love to be going to 17 races in the year.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, especially at this moment in time when they're double, triple headers, or last season anyway, I'm sure it was incredibly difficult for, there's the one side of the coin where you have people going out, traveling, doing their day job, but the other side of the coin is the absolute sacrifice it must have taken last year for, for many of the traveling staff involved, to bring us entertainment, and obviously to bring, stakeholders and shareholders what they need as well. But for the fans, to bring us entertainment, the sacrifices will have to be made. And if the people that are watching tonight are going to go into motorsport, that they'll be making sacrifices too, but all for a great life, all for achieving a dream and achieving a goal.
Absolutely.
People are asking about languages and if they're important, and if they are. Alice Watson's also asked, what's the best language to learn if it's just one, apart from English, but which is the universal speak of the paddock, I assume.
So our products at the moment, the core platforms which I manage, F1.com and the F1 app, are only in English. But our F1 TV streaming products support German, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, as well as English, obviously. So I think having another language is definitely an advantage, particularly when we're an organisation that is looking to be more multilingual in terms of the content that we produce in the future. So any language that is widely spoken, I think, is of benefit to bring to the organisation, really.
Yeah, definitely. We've still got sort of a couple of minutes available of the actual session, and for those of us that do have, well, for those of you that have to leave at past, if you have something pressing, then thank you so very much for joining us. But if you girls are okay to continue on a little bit longer, it'd be wonderful just to ask a couple more questions, if that's possible from you both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I saw a question asking who our favourite driver and team is, and I really want to answer it.
Go on.
Daniel Ricciardo, obviously.
I was going to say, Ellen, there's only one choice.
Yeah, why is that, Ellen? No, absolutely. What do you think of his move then into a new team?
I'm interested to see how he performs. I think he's such a good driver, and in the early days of Red Bull, he was doing so well, and so it's been a shame to see last year him not perform. We haven't seen him on the podium necessarily, or especially we haven't seen him take pole position in a long time. So want to be able to see that again. We'll see if the Renault is the right car for him. This year will be quite exciting, but yeah, I can't wait to see what happens. I think he's such a great piece of entertainment for the sport as well. I just love him.
Alpa, do you have a favourite driver?
I have a driver that is not everyone's favorite, which is Lewis Hamilton. And I think for me, look, I think he's a great driver. I know that he doesn't come over as the most kind of tactile, warm person, but I think he's, very technically good. I also think, I am brown. And for me to see Lewis in the position that he is in F1 motorsport is just great, and I hope there's more to come in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And before people do start leaving us and leave us, there will be links posted in the chat for the social media, for all the socials. Please join the community page, the FIA Girls on Track, and become involved and start making those connections, and just start talking to people and chatting to people. There is going to be a survey put out at the end of all of these chats at the end of February, once it's all complete. So it'd be absolutely wonderful if you could complete that survey, and what we were talking about before, about how do you judge and gauge the response of what you're doing, what you're putting out there. And I think it'd be lovely to be able to gauge the response of these sessions and these talks, and so if you can fill out that survey when it does arrive, that would be absolutely amazing. So for those of you who do have to leave us because it's past, and thank you so very much for joining us. You've been absolutely lovely, and all your beautiful faces there. It's lovely to see you. So thank you. So we just do have a little bit of extra time. We have to ask you, Alpa, about a funny fact. We have to ask you that.
Oh my God. I think the funniest thing that I ever did, and many of you're not going to know this show, but when I was 5 years old, I was filmed for a children's television show singing Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, holding hands in a circle with other kids. And the show was called Rainbow. And I had these two most ridiculous ponytails sticking out at the side of my head that my mother insisted was a very, very good hairstyle. And I think somewhere in my home, in my parents' home, there is a video of this, but I am going to make sure it never ever comes out ever, because it was terrible.
You don't put it on as your background. That would be amazing.
No, thank you. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yes, I remember Rainbow. Yes, it was fantastic. It was great. That's absolutely fun. That's wonderful. If anybody wants a fun fact about me, I'm a Manchester City fan, and I've worked for Manchester United twice. It's not quite funny. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not even funny. I'm going to get bombarded now for that information. Hit by all the Manchester City fans. We just do have a couple more questions, more serious ones, about, are there any plans to create an app for the F1 fantasy website, perhaps in a similar way to football?
So that's a great question. It's something that we've been looking at trying to do within our current app. It's probably not something we'll do this year, but hopefully in years to come we'll be able to integrate it so it's all in one place, so that you can play fantasy on the app as well as on the website. Yeah. I'm glad to see that there's fantasy users. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I'm on. I had my team as well. I did quite well at the beginning, but then I dropped off. I started doing rubbish.
That always happens to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of think that we have asked quite a lot of questions, and I think from a female point of view, what advice right now can you give to the women that are watching, to do maybe tonight or tomorrow? What immediate piece of advice can you give? And that's for both of you.
Do you want to go first, Ellen?
Immediate piece of advice. I think expand your network. Send people some LinkedIn requests. Send me a LinkedIn request. I'll happily accept it. And just start building your network so that if you're on LinkedIn, that is, but start building your network so that you have, like, when the time comes to start applying for a job, you've got a connection with someone. If you see a job, you've got a connection and you can start a conversation around that to understand more about the role and kind of to get yourself heard.
Alpa?
I'm gonna share with you the things that I have learned from myself and that I wish that somebody had told me or that I had looked into. So I think that the first thing is be yourself, be authentic, because you will work for these companies, or you're going to go and work for these companies, and you'll see a whole bunch of people in senior positions, and you might start saying to yourself, oh, that's not me, or I haven't got that. And I think you've just got to be yourself and act like yourself. I think the other thing is, it might sound really small, but change the messages. So if you do look at something that you want to do in the future and you read a job description and you go, oh, I can't do that one point, or I've got those 4, but I haven't got the other 2. I think tell yourself it's okay. Don't put messages in your mind that I can't, it's not right, I haven't got, because you're really sending yourself some messages that really you're saying I can't, so you'll stop yourself in your tracks. So go the other way, say you can and be bold. The one thing that I didn't have when I was much younger was a plan, and of course plans can change. You might go from being what did you say, Louisa, air hostess to an interviewer, and be more immediate and editorial. Like we've all changed, but have a plan. If there's a direction you want to go in, write it down. It doesn't have to be grand. The minute that you write something down, you've done step 1. You can't get a step 2, 3, or 4 if you haven't done the step 1. So I think have a plan. If you change your mind in a year or 2, then that's fine. But be bold in your plan. Don't set your sights low. I used to do that. I'd say, right, I'm just going to be a project manager for this number of years. Then I'm going to be a senior project manager for this. And I just set my sights a bit too low. I think set them high. And even if you don't achieve that thing in the time limit that you gave yourself, that's totally fine. We talk about it a lot, but it's true. Be resilient, be robust. Your plan isn't always going to go your way. Some things are going to happen in your home life or your work life, and you're going to have to adapt, and that's fine. Just know that you can and that you'll get over it. And going back to Ellen's point about the network, there's that professional network and those people that you will speak to now and again, but what about the power of your home network, those go-to people that you go to when you've not had a great day, that are going to help you? And then the last thing I would say is, like all people who are really good at something in life, athletes, journalists, whoever, get a coach, get a mentor. Doesn't have to be one, get a few. Those are the people that are going to keep you on track based on what you've shared with them in the plan. These are all the things I didn't do that I did much later in my life, but just writing something down, you get a great perspective on these things. And one last thing that I will share, I had big ambitions, but I didn't always want to share them with people that I didn't know very, very well, because there was this kind of fear of failure thing. When I was a project manager, I didn't want to share that I wanted to be a program director, 2 or 3 levels up. But if you don't share that with people, how do they know that you want to go there, and how can they help you get there? So be honest, be bold, make a plan, and adapt where you need to.
Yeah, I think there's probably a fear out there that if maybe you share too much, somebody might steal your ideas or steal your thunder. And what I like to see it as is the more you share and the more available you are for people and the more help you give to people, the more you're going to receive. The more you can do for somebody else, the more they can do for you as well, on a very positive level. And I absolutely agree with the plan. They call it the road to F1 or the road to motorsport. you know, whichever motorsport you might be interested in, but they don't call it a straight road, do they? You know, roads have got avenues and little slips off to one side, and sometimes it's a fast motorway and sometimes it's a slow one round the back. But yeah, you know, we all have to have that goal in mind and see how we get there along the way. And just one final thing as well to kind of mention is, if you look at what has happened in the last 12 months, obviously we've been in a world that there's been a lot of devastation, and you know, a lot of people have sacrificed quite a lot and stayed at home. But one of the things that has happened online with this community that we're all together and part of tonight is this has morphed out of this last year. So if we can take a positive, more than one, but if we can take one from this last 12 months or so, it's a connection. It's the online connection, and what it's done for everybody, I think, is give opportunity. And that's a word I think I'd like to leave you with the word of opportunity, and think about it and take it when it comes. So thank you all so very much. The people sending in their questions have been in there multiple, and we're so very grateful, and it's so wonderful to see you. Also, thank you, Alpa and Ellen. You've been absolutely marvellous tonight. And thank you to F1 and to Motorsport UK for putting this on for us. This is incredible, and it's only night 2. Don't forget the survey that will come at the end of all these sessions. Don't forget the social media links. FIA Girls on Track, Instagram, Twitter, all just coming up there in the chat for you to copy, paste and press on the links. And I think we've come to the end. Tune into all the next sessions, and I'll see you again towards the end of the month on another session there. So take care, and thank you all so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely to meet you.
Great to see you.